Welcome, Mzansi. You are listening to Farmers Inside Track, proudly brought to you by Food for Mzansi. Officially, this is the world's best podcast for 2024 as awarded by WAN-EFRA, the global organization for the world's press. I'm your host, Donumdu. In this edition, we're stepping into the fascinating world of ginger. Yes, that versatile spice that's taking the global market by storm. From its medicinal uses to its growing demand in international markets, ginger is proving to be a key player in agricultural economies worldwide. We sit down with Nozipho Puwana, an agricultural economist and founder of agricultural market research insights and Analyst. She shares her expert insights on the key drivers behind ginger's growing popularity, the challenges faced by African producers, and the potential for Africa to thrive in this lucrative market. Nozipho Puwana, it is so amazing to be able to connect with you on Farmers Inside Track. I was able to pick your brain a little bit when we spoke about the olive industry because you shared some insights as an agricultural economist on this industry as well. And today we're talking about all things ginger production. But before we get into it, welcome. Tell us a little bit about you. What led you to, pursue a career in agricultural economics?
Thank you so much for having me today. Actually, it started at high school when I was doing grade 11. So I remember our subject was divided into two, which is the scientific, biological part, and then the economic part. So I just grew interest in economics. I never even thought there was something called economics. So studying more about it increased my passion. So I did my undergrad in economics, and then I decided to further my studies where I started specializing in agribusiness with the University of Victoria. The more I got exposed, the more my interest grew in the industry. People, when they think of agriculture, they think of hard labor, and it's not always the case. So as we speak at the moment, I'm busy pursuing my PhD in economics, focusing on the solutions in terms of climate change in agriculture and in general in my PhD.
Thank you so much for the update. And of course, you don't do that. You're also the co-founder of Protein Master Agri-Feed. And your doctoral research is quite interesting, where you're focusing specifically on the adoption of drought-tolerant crops and climate-resistant legumes for smallholder farmers in the Limpopo province. I mean, that must be really interesting, and it will definitely be beneficial to smallholder farmers in this region and beyond.
I'm the founder of a company called Market Research Insights and Analyst. We focus on assisting both small and big farmers in terms of current trends in the industry who wants to venture into production and those who want to expand their production, and then what are the opportunities are there for farmers and producers in the agri space. So that's what the company does, helping farmers to move from the small scale in terms of farming, going more to commercializing their farming. The other company that we are busy with is Protein Master Agri-Feed, where we focus mainly on production of chicken and fish feed. Because we've noticed like now there's a high demand in terms of protein intake. There was a growing condition between human consumption and these livestock. So we decided to come with a solution in terms of use organic waste to produce protein for livestock, where we use black soldier flies in all the production. And also because I think it has been on the topic lately, both on the news, everyone is affected by the climate change. And now there are extreme conditions globally, which affects general agriculture. As we all know that agriculture depends highly on weather condition, which affects the production. So I decided to venture in the current trends that are happening and then come up with a solution to assist small farmers, even though I'm focusing in Limpopo, but I believe even other farmers in other provinces will benefit with the knowledge in the research.
I have no doubt that it will benefit farmers in all provinces. So thank you so much for your continuous contribution and research to the sector. Now, more on the topic of today, and this is specifically around what's driving the global demand for ginger, and also just wanting to get a bit of an understanding of what our positioning is as Africa and the potential of this specific commodity for producers. What factors are driving the global demand for ginger, especially in international markets?
Let me first start by stating that there are several factors that are affecting the demand of ginger in the local and international market. Thirdly, I want to talk about the global demand for ginger that is continuing to increase due to its recognition as a healthier product or for healthier benefits. And then secondly, the other factor is a shift in the eating habits by the consumers. And thirdly, is the demand for spices and growth of food industry are also drivers of the demand in the industry.
At the end of the day, consumers play a really big role in the factors that kind of play into what we produce and how that plays out in markets. As part of your comments on this topic, and that's where I picked it up on, is your take on the industry. How does the projected growth of the global ginger market from 84.83 billion in 2023 to 164.5 billion in 2033 impact African producers? I mean, that's quite a big jump, kind of what you see and the potential of this growth for producers in Africa specifically.
Sir, it is a projected global growth in terms of the ginger market from 84.83 billion rands to 164.05 billion rands. So I think it's very important first to touch base what is the cause for this double increase in terms of the expectation, in terms of the growth, being driven or influenced by the consumer awareness about the product. The nice thing in ginger production, we have so many role players. Talk of your food manufacturing industry, where they use ginger as an ingredient in the food manufacturing. And then we talk of beverage. Also, they use ginger in the ingredient of their beverage production. The third big role player in the industry is in medicine. They also rely on the ginger in terms of ingredients. So what does it say to Africa, or what impact does it play to Africa? So Africa's shares in the global ginger market is very important. It was driven by local consumption and the export opportunities for Africa to partake in the market. And I think the other advantage is the fact that ginger is mostly produced in the tropical regions. So we stand a huge chance in terms of producing more, in terms of increasing our production volumes.
Thanks so much for that insight. Now, what role does climate change play in the production of ginger across Africa, particularly in countries like Nigeria?
The impact of climate change in ginger impacts the price fluctuation. Ginger production relies heavily on weather conditions such as your rainfall, your temperatures, your sunlight. So like any other agricultural commodity. So when there's a shade of shift in the climate, it also affects the yield or production volumes of the products. What we are seeing, we are experiencing extreme weather conditions like drought, floods, storms, which are lowering our yields in ginger production. And the consequences of that, it creates more price instability in the market.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is happening across the board with other commodities as well. Thanks so much for that kind of explainer on specifically that region in Africa. Now, obviously, Nigeria is they're in a dominant position in terms of ginger production. What policies and investments would you recommend, to enhance productivity and competitiveness in other African countries, and specifically in South Africa, where we're based?
Firstly, let me comment on what you just said. Nigeria, it's among the biggest producers in ginger in Africa. It's leading actually in Africa. And then the second leading country globally in terms of ginger production. So threatening aid policies can play a very important role in terms of increasing the competitiveness of ginger in Africa. What is currently happening, for instance, let me talk about Nigeria. Nigeria is the biggest producer of oil. So what is happening like now, they tend to focus more on the oil production, which diminishes the attention by other sectors such as agriculture. So where there are no investments that are going to agriculture, for instance, ginger is labor intense, where 1 hectare it will need at least 7 workers. So if we could have more investment in terms of technology to increase the efficiency of the production of our product, that will be a plus. And then it will enhance our competitiveness. And then secondly, ginger uses a lot of water. I remember there was a farmer that on some of the board where he mentioned that on hot days, they use approximately 1 million liters of water. So when you talk of water licensing and realistic, majority of farmers don't have that access to water capacity. But with good machines and equipment, we can use water more efficient instead of using so much water when we are using labor elsewhere. But invest more on machines that will improve the production of our ginger. So also, it would be very important for us as Africans to promote the value of the ginger crop through continental free trade agreement. They can capitalize on that, and then also we can capitalize on European Union debts, because the nice thing in agriculture, agri products are seasonal. So during winter season in Europe, for instance, the demand for ginger is very high while the supply is low. And then we have an advantage because when it's winter season that side, summer season this side. So we can enter more into the market or benefit more in terms of price, because the price will be high because product will be out of season. So we can capitalize on those policies as well. And then the other thing I want to touch about in terms of policies, where there will be policies that talks more about the research, the products, because like now there's limited in terms of scientific knowledge about the product, where like now there'll be more invested also on the research, where we are talking more about profiling of the products, where researchers profile it in a way it will attract more growers, more producers, more distributors to partake more in the business. So such investments of technology will help us, and then also revisit our continental trade free agreement, and then European Union markets can enhance our competitiveness globally as Africans.
And I understand that the issues around mechanization and technologies is always a challenge because of the cost involved, but I think there should be some plans to kind of progress this, and hopefully we can tap into the potential of this specific commodity to meet, that demand by 2033, just in terms of how African nations can capitalize on the medicinal and aromatic properties of ginger to add value to their exports. Or do you have any comments or kind of advice around that?
I think we still stand a good chance in terms of going back to my earlier comments, where we as researchers we focus more in terms of giving insights about profiling, the herbal profiling of these products, which is a medicinal use, where it will attract more people to participate in the market of ginger, and then it will drive more also people such as your food processors to the industry.
My last and final question on this topic is just around, the impact on trade regulations, tariffs, and international trade agreements, have on the competitiveness of African ginger in the global market.
Firstly, any change on the regulation of any product and introduction of tariffs can further create more uncertainty and also impact the ginger price. What we can focus more on is the removal of import duties that could potentially boost the competitiveness of the industry. That's the first one we can do on our trade policies. Secondly, is the reduction of non-tariff barriers, which could potentially double the trade volumes once that is taken into consideration.
Thank you so much for your time and insights. I definitely have a much better understanding of the global demand for ginger and kind of our positioning as Africa and the potential of it, but also some of the shortfalls and things that we need to work on as an industry, to kind of drive it. So I would like to just ask you if you have any final comments on the topic, and then we'll wrap up.
So my final comment will be there's a huge gap in the market where we're going to encourage work farmers to partake in the ginger production. For instance, when you talk of Nigeria alone, Nigeria produces about 31 metric tons of ginger, while the demand is 65 metric tons in terms of ginger, which gives us the supply and demand gap of 34. So there's high demand, and also now consumer awareness created a shift in terms of where consumers now want to eat more natural herbs. It would be nice to play our role as farmers to fill up in that gap. And then there's a business opportunity in the industry. And then lastly, for instance, if we were to talk about the macadamia farmers in the province of Limpopo. So ginger and macadamia grows hand in hand, in terms of climate. They require the same climate condition. as we all know that macadamia takes almost like 5 years to mature. So in the process, farmers can intercrop macadamia and ginger in order to boost their cash flow while they're waiting for the maturity of the macadamia. In between the trees, they can even do the ginger production. It benefits a lot also the production of macadamia because those nutrients that will be fed the ginger can also benefit the tree. So encourage more also in South Africa macadamia farmers in Mpumalanga to have a look on that. And we don't have much producers in South Africa in terms of ginger. So that can also increase our production.
Thank you so much for your insights. Our guest is, of course, Nozipho Puwana, an agricultural economist and founder of Agricultural Market Research Insights and Analyst. She's also the co-founder of Protein Master AgriFeed. For more updates on optimizing your agricultural practices, visit www.foodformzansi.co.za. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with fellow farmers. From me, Donumdu, our technical producer Megan van de Vent, and the rest of the Food from Zanzi team, until next time, happy farming.